Hello, hello. It is Success Story Saturday, December 23rd, 2017. Steve Sipress here on a happy Christmas Eve day. We've got so many people to see and places to go that we're making a whole weekend out of it, apparently. So today, my beautiful wife Michelle are off to the in-laws to exchange some Christmas presents. So you see there in the back seat, it is full of presents. Santa dropped them off a day early, put them right down the chimney, and somehow we've put them in the car, and we know who they go to and all that kind of stuff. How cool is that? I'm here with my beautiful wife Michelle. And you might notice it doesn't look like we're dressed for Arizona, but this is the winter, and I learned 2 years ago when we moved down here that the winter actually is the winter. And actually just a little bit north of here, it even snows, and we can see out our window when we get up in the morning, especially in the winter, another month or so, we'll see the snow-capped mountains. It'll be snowing just 20, 30 miles away from us. So it is a little chilly. It is still in the 50s here, and we're going to be eating outside as we eat our Christmas Eve/Christmas celebration lunch here. Because I looked at my beautiful wife Michelle, who was heading out, and I'm like, honey, what's with the fur coat and the this and the that and the scarf and the gloves? She was wearing gloves. And I'm like, she's like, yeah, we're going to be eating outside. So on went the leather jacket, which I don't think I've worn for, well, at least for a year. And then the scarf went on. And then my Stony, what's it called? The Stony Cromer hat, courtesy of a great client and friend of mine, Mr. Ace Luciano, who got me this. And, didn't think I'd be wearing it a lot. I don't wear it a lot in Arizona. But today, being outside in the 50s, we're dressed a little for the warmth. So, and I did not bring a rhino with me. Do we have any in the glove compartment? Let's see. We got something here. Not a rhino. So no rhino of the day today. But Success Story Saturday. So let me tell you how I came up with this one. Clarence Birdseye. You might recognize the name now. Also named Birdseye Frozen Foods and the TV dinners and all. I was having a consultation with a client of mine who is before he got to me, he was unsuccessfully attempting to sell a training course. And he was like, man, I got 52 videos and a this and whatever and a that. And I'm like, let's do some research here and look around in your industry and all the other options that people are looking at to learn how to do whatever it is you're teaching them to do. And he was like, yeah, they're all the same. They're all got, this many modules and this many videos and this many this, that, and it, we'll teach everything you need to know, and it's over. And I'm like, the industry itself is it's a mathematical, scientific type of thing. Hey, Tony, great seeing you. So they tend to be over analytical, and I'm like, is there anybody that is saying, I will teach you the simplest, quickest way to make money doing this? He was like, no. Everyone's like over-explaining and over-analyzing and over-teaching it, and I'm like, exactly. So I said, how about the story of Clarence Birdseye? And Clarence Birdseye was first coming up with, they first came up with TV dinners that he didn't invent, but later on the Birdseye Food Corporation, they came up with TV dinners. I'm sure everyone said, like, don't be ridiculous. Nobody wants to throw a dinner in the oven and be done in 10 minutes and eat, you call that roast beef? Like, people want mom in the kitchen for an hour and a half, slaving over the stove, making up grandma's recipe of the meatloaf and the peas and the mashed potatoes and the apple cobbler, and somebody convinced somebody that, like, hey, maybe not. Maybe somebody would appreciate being able to, anybody can quickly eat dinner. No shopping, no cooking after, no cleaning, no recipe, no preheating and mixing and having 4 burners going at once and 2 ovens and making sure everything coordinates. How about you throw this thing tin foil in, it's got the separate compartments with the stuff in it, the food, and it comes out and you stir it a little round. It's not the greatest meatloaf and mashed potatoes in the world, but it'll do. And like, people might want that convenience. And boom, took off. And later on, of course, McDonald's and fast food, and it's everyone knows now with microwaves and whatever, everything is you can go into stores, you go into the stores at the gas stations, And they got microwaves right there. So you can buy the burritos and the hot dogs and the pizza and put it right in the microwave and eat it right there. I mean, it's a whole humongous industry. But back in the day, I'm pretty sure everyone told the people at the Birdseye Corporation or whoever first came up with the TV dinner, like, yeah, no one will want that, or it can't be done, or what are you thinking, or that's stupid, or whatever. So I said, there might be an opportunity if you can actually deliver that. If you can say, you don't have to study 52 videos and 18 modules and take a month and know everything. You can simply remove the tin foil, pop it in the oven, wait 10 minutes, and you're eating. That kind of training. If you can really, he's got a software to help make this happen and make money doing what he's teaching. I'm like, why do you even have to teach him the fundamentals and the underlying and the reasons why? Why can't we just give him the software, teach him how to use the software? Say, press this button, make sure you don't press that button, boom, you're making money. He's like, and then later on, once they're making money, we can say, now, if you want to learn advanced stuff, we got 52 videos and modules and whatever, and we'll sell them all that stuff down the road. But let's get making some money quick, and let's carve out a space in the marketplace for that. So I mentioned the name Clarence Birdseye, and I incorrectly, when I looked him up, I thought Birdseye was the one that came up with the TV dinner, but that happened years later. But I will tell you the story of Clarence Birdseye today. Again, household name now, but interesting character. And a lot of good lessons here. He was born the third of 9 children, I think, in Brooklyn, New York. And he went away to college up in Amherst, Massachusetts, near where I went to school, in Boston area. And one of the fancy schmancy liberal arts schools in New England, like I went to. And then one of the greatest things happened to him is, it just so happens, I think, as the story goes, his 2 older brothers graduated school, but then the family ran out of money to pay for him to go to school, and so he had to drop out after like 2 years. Well, fantastic. Like, I wasn't smart enough to do that. Got the sun all over the place here. I look like white as a ghost, huh? Oh well. And so it looks like I have like a Santa Claus beard on, because I look like I have a white bottom of the face. Kind of cool for Christmas Eve day. Look at that. I can get it kind of up. Yeah, look at that. That's amazing. I look like Santa Claus. All right. So Birdseye had to drop out after 2 years. Like, no sitting around and waiting for a piece of paper and, acting like you're doing something and wasting all that time and money and good years of your life, like I did. Get the heck out of there, like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg and, like, Oprah Winfrey and tons of entrepreneurs. Get the heck out of wasting your time going to college. And nowadays, it's absurd amounts of money, and then you come out and you're, sleeping in mommy's basement and playing the victim and complaining no one will hire you and all that. So 2 years of school, he got out, and his first job he got, I believe, or one of his first jobs, he was a taxidermist. So keep that in mind. He was preserving dead animals. And I think he even spent some time here in Arizona helping control the coyote population. But then, somehow, he got a job all the way back east. Maybe he got homesick for the East Coast and went all the way back and got a job in Newfoundland, where he learned ice fishing from the Inuit Indians, I believe, where they fish in the winter under, feet of ice. And here's where he noticed something that made him a millionaire many times over. He noticed that the fish froze almost as soon as they got them out of the water. They would pull them up out of the water and boom, they're frozen. I mean, the air, it must have been freezing cold up there, who knows, 30, 40 below, and you're on ice, and that fish comes out, boom, flash frozen. He's like, wow, check that out. Because at the time, apparently, this is in the early 1920s, about 100 years ago, all the companies the few companies that were doing frozen foods, mostly for commercial use, were freezing them at higher temperatures, apparently. They were waiting until the fish were warmer to start the freezing process, and this basically turned the fish to mush. So basically, it allowed the fish to soften too much before it froze, and frozen foods weren't good. And he said, I got to find a way to do like we did up there with the Inuit in the ice fishing, and get the fish frozen as quickly as possible at the lowest temperature possible, and then we'll have the least some kind of molecules already developing inside the fish that ruins it later. And he he got this process going. So he started a company, and sure enough, like 2 years later, he went bankrupt, which many entrepreneurs do, including our current president, entrepreneur. So, stigma, to the outside world, to the never-Trumpers and the anti-Trumpers and non-business people, bankruptcy, means you're a failure. You're like, okay, well, but failing is part of being a successful entrepreneur, so it's all good. And he went through bankruptcy, and he developed an even better way of flash freezing the fish. And came out, and by the way, I read somewhere the reason for the bankruptcy was there was no commercial interest. So while he was a good entrepreneur, not a great marketer. So he couldn't market the concept of like, hey, frozen fish, like I talked about later on, calling it the TV dinner in the 50s, the 60s, when families started sitting around the TV instead of sitting around the dinner table. Suddenly, TV dinners became marketable, but he couldn't market it as a marketer or find someone like me to help him market it, so he went bankrupt instead. Happens a lot. Just heard yesterday, in fact, from a client of mine who sent me he said a competitor of his, little tangent here, I'll get back to the story. He said a competitor of his had gone out of business in the same industry and had given him some files. And he said, look what I found in the files. It was notes with my website, No BS Chicago, on it from my Chicagoland Sharpest Entrepreneurs, where I held hundreds of seminars for business owners and taught them how to market their business. And it had pages of notes from it. And yet the guy went out of business. And I'm like, yeah, well, it's likely he didn't implement any single one. I was like, holy crap, there's a ton of great ideas here. I'm pretty sure he didn't implement even a single one of them, and he wasn't smart enough to just pay me money to implement them for him. So he's out of business, and the notes are in some file handed to an ex-client of mine who, by the way, is doing fantastic. He's one of my greatest success stories in business. He's like number one in his industry, in his state for like 9 years in a row, or in his county or whatever. Anyway, I digress, and we're almost there, so let's finish the story here. We're going through, by the way, the Orange Grove section of here near Phoenix, where we drive through once in a while. They got orange trees and what else, lemons and limes and something. All the citrus stuff is here. So if you thought Arizona's just the desert, sure, but maybe you see out the window here, we got rows and rows and rows of citrus trees. If you can see the oranges up there on them, on both sides of the road, they line the road. And so if you want to have a lemon, grapefruits, I see, you just step off and you grab one. I guess you get back in the car and you peel the orange and you eat it. Okay, so back to Clarence Birdseye. We're almost done with the story. So he developed, after he went bankrupt, he developed a better system for flash freezing the fish. And then he started selling it. And towards stroke of luck / genius, whatever it was, but in 1929, 7 years after he started his business and 5 years after he went bankrupt, and if you recognize the date, that is the year of the Great Depression. So I don't know if it was before the Great Depression or after the Great Depression started and the market crashed and all that, but he sold his company to a company that would become the General Foods Company. Hey, we're back. So where was I? All right, so he sold his company. Hey, Phil. He sold his company to the company that would become General Foods for $22 million in 1929. Again, I don't know if that was after the start of the Depression, which would make it even more genius, or just before it, which would make it genius plus luck. And that company, although, General Foods bought it for $22 million, and now it's worth billions. So, but $22 million in 1929, by the way, in today's dollars, that's over $300 million. So if you went into a decade-long depression, not the decade-long recession that we went into after Bush and that Obama couldn't get us out of and just had us sitting there stagnantly miserable for years. Hey, Jason, I'm talking about depression. And you went into that with $300 million in your pocket, I think you'd be pretty much okay. So that's what happened to Clarence Birdseye. Wasn't a great marketer, didn't hire a great marketer, probably like most business owners didn't think about marketing. He only thought about improving the doing and the deliverable of the business and all that. So most of them do that. Big mistake. But he did it well enough, and it was a good enough idea that this company that became General Foods bought him out, gave him what today would be $300 million, $22 million. And he lived out the rest of his life, and I'm sure he he had family and became a philanthropist and did some stuff. Hey, we are back again. I can take a double hint and we'll end it soon, but you can see we're in Sipress area here because on the side, if you can see that, on the side of the road, we are at the Sipress farm, which says great gift idea, and they're open, like ship citrus around. I don't know how quickly they can get it there in one day at this point, but anyway, good idea. So that'll do it for Success Story Saturday. Clarence Birdseye, inventor, not a great marketer, but came up with a great idea. Did start his own business, went bankrupt. That didn't stop him. Came back, reinvented himself, pun intended, and went off and cashed in for what today would be worth $300 million. So the money's always in the marketing, folks, because he sold it for that $22 million in 1929, and today Birdseye Foods, household name. They now, freeze dry, meat, poultry, this, that, whatever. It's not just fish. It's all kinds of things, and they sell billions and billions and billions of dollars worth. So that's it for Success Stories Saturday. Lots of lessons there, but most of all, the one I was teaching to my client was, if everyone else is overcomplicating things, maybe you can think like Clarence Birdseye and think, is there a way to get something done that people can have it quicker and easier? Not necessarily having the best fish in the world, but having the most convenient fish in the world. He carved out that spot in the marketplace, cashed out for millions. I hope you do the same. So have a fantastic rest of your Christmas Eve day. Thanks to Tony and Phil and Jason for being here live, especially if you stuck it out through the multiple disconnections. I know we're in the middle of nowhere out here in Arizona, in citrus country, and I'm not going to wait till we get disconnected again. So I'll say goodbye, and I'll be back tomorrow with Sunday Fun Day, just to